Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Sultans of Swap. This is actually episode number 18. It's been a little while. Usually I'm joined by Johnny Hollywood, but he's got his late night breaks, so he might be sleeping in or out with the family. So it's me and Mr. Edwin Anderson. How are you, sir?
Doing pretty good, man. It's a nice day here in sunny Florida. How about you?
Good, good. It's going to be a pool day, no doubt about it. The little ones love it. So, me, not so much. I could stay inside all day, but I think that's pretty obvious uh, where I like to have my fun. But I got to get out there a little bit. Um, yeah, yeah. That's about it. It's gonna be a quiet weekend.
Cool. Well, I know we wanted to give the fans what they've been asking for, and know that we got a lot of folks that have been hitting us up, asking when we're going to do another episode, and I've really been kind of craving some additional dialogue. So,
Yeah, yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. Before we got started, we kind of talk about what we've been up to lately. And one of the things, if you're into this hobby, you're always into is checking out a card shop. So we thought we'd kind of delve into different kind of card shops and our personal experiences and what we look for. I mean, the hobby's pretty vast. Everyone has something they collect. Edwin is a huge Cal Ripken super collector, so I know when you go to a card shop, that's predominantly what you're looking for. But as far as card shops go, I mean, how many do you have around where you are locally, Edwin?
where I'm at, card shops aren't that big. There are a few, and they're few and far in between. To be honest with you, most of the stuff that sells baseball cards around me, which is unfortunately disappointing. It's kind of like their primary focus is something else, and they have a little section over in the corner with some stuff that they found, in collections they bought or whatever.
Right.
So it's unfortunate. That's why I do so much stuff online. But one of the cool things that I do have is, when I do travel around, maybe for work or pleasure, one of the things that I try to do is go check out local card shops because
Yeah, for
I
sure.
just don't have that in my area.
Yeah, for sure. I'm pretty lucky around me. The company and actually the gentleman who is owns Huggins and Scott Auctions, which is most people know it. It's not eBay, but it's a pretty large auction site that has been around for a long time. Their card shop, which I mean, candidly, kind of acts more as like their office space to run their operation, is a really, really good card shop, which is about a half hour, 45 minutes for me, so it's not too bad. Now, the town I actually live in, I live in Frederick, Maryland. We had one of those ones where it was mainly like frames and memorabilia, but not a lot of cards. But it was cool because guys would come to sign sometimes. And then just recently, a younger fella, probably in his like mid 20s, decided in one of the smaller towns to open up a little card shop on the main street. So he probably gets good rent, but he's just starting out. So for my personal taste and what I collect, it's not great, but hey man, at least I have something I can stop in and chew the fat. And I try and do my best and throw them $20 here and there for whatever, just to kind of keep it going. Because the big thing is just supporting the shop. I mean, man, I know you're going to get better value online, but I think it's cool that someone's going to try it out. And like I said, even if I'm giving them $20 a week, that's better than nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things is I not having a lot of card shops around me. Other than when I lived up north in Virginia, we did have some card shops. It was a little bit easier to get to them and those types of things. But prior to that, I mean, back in the early '90s,
Oh
when
yeah,
card shops were at its all time height, that's what I based a lot of my card shop experiences upon. So and it's just not the same anymore.
no,
Unfortunately, you have to kind of reevaluate your expectations when you go out there. But the cool thing for me is, being a Cal Ripken or an Orioles collector, when I go out to other places, was it a couple weeks ago? I was out in Dallas, and there's a couple of groups online that are kind of dedicated to helping you find the card shops. And I just went in there and said, hey, I'm going to be out, in Dallas. Anybody have any recommendations? And I got about 3 or 4 of them, and so I kind of picked the top recommendation. I went out there and said, hey, let me go check it out, because that's what I like to do. The cool thing about go check it out in a card shop that's not in your native area is like when you're out in Dallas, everybody,
Yeah.
wants to buy the Astros and the Rangers and stuff like that. But then I can just go cherry pick all the Orioles. Are like, Orioles, who cares about those guys?
Yeah.
So
It's funny that you mentioned that because it's one thing I talk about all the time when I do travel. One of the big reasons I do seek out the card shops, especially, is because I know that they're going to give away Pittsburgh Pirates for pretty much nothing. They or the Nationals or the Orioles. Because I kind of live in like this triangle area. I'm like right in the middle of all of them. But when I go to like shows around here, I mean, those guys sell at a premium, obviously, because that's what people want. So when I do go to Florida, Texas, California, I always seek out those shops because it's exactly what you said. I'm going to be able to find Brooks Robinson and Bryce Harper and Clemente a little bit lower. Like even though like Clemente and Harper sell well everywhere, I can save a little bit
right.
by getting them somewhere else. Like I said, for me going through a card shop, I'm a pretty stingy shopper. I know that not everyone's that way. They kind of know what they want. They're willing to pay a premium for the cards they want. And if you guys have listened to the show before, I'm one of the stingiest shoppers there are. And I take it with like a badge of pride, man. Like I'm making sure that I'm getting a good deal because when you buy a lot, those things it adds up exponentially. $5 here and there can really add up to a couple $100, which is a really nice card. So price is usually the first thing when I walk in a card shop, not just what they have as far as an inventory, but I kind of just take a look at that first case and get a ballpark idea what the prices are. And I know right away whether I'm buying anything or I'm not.
Yeah, even my last experience going to a card shop, it was a little bit, higher than expected when it comes to prices. And predominantly over the last, several years, I've been focused on online, finding those deals. And that's the great thing about online purchases. I mean, you can go out there and really hunt, for those deals. So, you walk into a card shop, I have a pretty good understanding of common prices, especially for, like raw vintage and that kind of stuff. So, when I walk in, I see that first case, they have their Mantle, they have their Maris, they have their Nolan Ryan rookie card. You can kind of take a look at those, those common pieces and
Right.
gauge where they are in the prices. And, first thing you do, you walk up, oh, you got a Mantle. Okay. So, what are you asking for that? Any wiggle room? Oh no, I'm not going to budge. This is where it is, and so it kind of sets the tone, for what you're going to get from there on out. And in this particular card shop, they had.
Now, where was this at in Texas?
Yeah, this was in Plano, Texas, which is a little north of Dallas.
Yeah.
So it was a fairly sized card shop. I mean, it wasn't like a hole in the wall type of place, but it was a
Right.
little strip mall, and it was kind of like almost like a double space. And they had their display cases with their singles, in it. They had some new product, which was pretty much. I mean, unfortunately, at the time of when I went, I mean, the market was kind of wiped out anyways. It was in between, new
Right.
stuff coming out anyway, so they didn't have that much new stuff. Then they had like an entire wall full of like a baseball card, commons and some inserts, but all by set. And then they had like inserts in a special section. Then they had some memorabilia and that kind of stuff. But, it was one of those things as like, hey, find what you want. And then the guy pulls out the Beckett. And you're
Oh
like,
no!
oh,
No, the
you're killing
dreaded
me.
Beckett, man.
You're killing me. And then,
Yeah.
a couple things he was like, yeah, we'll do like 50% Beckett price, which, sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't in your favor. And, it was what it was. But the cool thing was they had a steady stream of like common customers that were coming in, and that was actually, really cool to see, a card shop that had clientele, coming in, because
Yeah.
sometimes when you go in these card shops, it's like you're the only one in there for, an hour digging through cards, and you're like, man, where's everybody else at?
Right. It's funny because I feel like if you're on Facebook, if you're on Twitter, like any of these places, and you are an internet guy, which a lot of us are now, probably some of the things that we're saying, I know that people have heard kind of discussed before. And the one thing I would say to kind of move it forward is that my experience at card shows and card shops lately has been they are really starting to catch up. Because again, I just go back to my local LCS that I frequent. They are pricing competitively with eBay with a few exceptions. And those exceptions are what we mentioned earlier, like Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, because of the area that I'm in, those cards are at a premium. But like generally speaking, every other player that plays now is very much priced with eBay. The one thing I notice about vintage too, their vintage is very competitively priced with eBay prices, particularly when it comes to like PSA, SGC, BVG, because they know that we know how much it costs when we walk in there. So, and of course they sell on eBay, they, have their own auction page. So they know what these cards are going for. And it's been really nice to walk into a card shop and say, all right, man, this is pretty much right at vintage card prices. Or even going to card show. I went to a card show last month, and there was a table where a guy basically had everything priced with eBay. And, he gave this whole speech about how, why would you buy it from me for, the obvious thing. Why would you buy it from me for more than you would pay for it on eBay? And I got to tell you, the guy had the busiest table at the show because people were like, holy crap. They would just walk right up and, they would spend 50, 100, 200, 500 bucks at a clip because they knew they were getting value back. So I do see, particularly with dealers and with card shops, even though they do have the overhead, the premium, everything else, that the ones that are surviving are the ones that are really starting to catch up with that technology. They are doing a combination. Again, for my personal LCS, they have a whole table where it's just cards that are on eBay right now. So like you can walk up and you can say, I want that card and buy it, and they'll pull it off of eBay. Obviously they're at buy it now prices. But I think that's really cool that they're doing that.
Yeah, no, I think that's, it's like everything else, as a merchant, you're going to have to adapt to where everything's going. Otherwise you're going to get passed by everybody else. But I like your translation to the card shows because I think it holds hand in hand with that as well. And you're starting to see more and more of that at the card shows as well, where folks have their iPad with their internet access or whatever. They'll look it up for you if they don't already have it priced out ahead of time. And, that's cool. But, I've heard a lot of stories about, folks going around to card shows or even card shops. When they pull out that Beckett, they just walk away. They're just I'm done with you because you're not going to budge anywhere on this.
Well, the thing is, like I've talked about this before, I like the haggle part, and I'm very careful to never tell someone like, hey man, this is what it goes for on eBay. Like I never say that. What I generally say is like, this is what I'm willing to pay. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you there have been a number of times where I've walked away from a table and they've been like, all right, because they know they have a potential sale. And again, I don't feel like that's me being a dick. I feel like that's just, hey, you have to, particularly for newer cards. The only exceptions that I typically make are for premium vintage older cards where the bottom line is there's just not a lot of them around. Like I have definitely overpaid for some Clementes. And I have definitely overpaid for Jackie Robinson and Mickey Mantle and the guys that you would expect. And that's always been for higher graded vintage. Because your opportunity to purchase those items isn't that great. Like there might not always be another one around the corner. But with newer stuff, man, it's one like Noah Syndergaard, dude's on fire. Like that's great. Noah Syndergaard is going to be signing autographs from now until he retires and probably 50 years after that. God willing, he survives. But so I'm not as pressed to pay that premium price for the modern players, but I will do it for, like I said, those unique cards.
Well, and I think from an investment standpoint, I mean, you're going to pay a premium on a card that has, historically, if you look at the trend line, has gone up and up and up. So, by the time you find another one, you may end up paying more than what you had the opportunity to buy it at before, and I think that's the challenge with folks is, at what time do you actually, commit to doing it? And, but I think you got those common folks, those Hall of Famers, that vintage stuff that, you can look at that trend line and it's going to go up. I mean, it's a good investment. And a lot of folks, I mean, not to change this topic, but
no, dude, I was just thinking about it because that market has exploded.
Yeah. I mean, and a lot of folks are actually, cashing out their 401ks and investing in cards, which is crazy when you think about it. But at the same time,
hey, if the return on investment is a greater percentage, it's, I mean, that's how it's going right now. I mean, look, it's all risk. And I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but 52 Mickey Mantle, their return on investment from 1986 to 2015 has been like better than Google. I mean, it's well, maybe not, but you get what I'm saying. It's been pretty amazing. The market in general, it's definitely would have been a much greater investment. It's incredible.
Yeah, I think that just is it's rather interesting, and you're seeing there's sites out there that kind of I guess capitalize upon that whole scheme, of not a scheme, but the whole concept of investing in baseball cards. And I mean, there's actually sites out there that you can trade cards like you can stocks.
Yeah, man, I just mentioned it because I've really been back into the hobby for about 2.5, 3 years. And when I first came back, there was very little. If anything, it was a down 3 years ago to where I found that vintage cards were pretty much in similar line with when I had left the hobby in like 2002. And now it's insane. I've told this story, so forgive me. It sounds like a bad beat poker story, and I know that everyone hates bad beat poker stories. But I lost a PSA 7 Roberto Clemente rookie by $2, and it was $3,670, and it went for $3,672, which at the time that's where me being cheap got me, because at the time that card was selling for around $4,500. Right now, a PSA 7 Clemente rookie card is like $20,000, man. It is insanity. And I kick myself every day for just being a cheap ass. Like, if I would have just paid the $4,500, like just paid the average of what it was going for, man, I totally blew it on that one. So there's my bad beat poker story. I'm sorry. I know everyone has them, but that was the one that really got me.
Yep. Well, I don't know. I mean, even getting back to the topic of the kind of card shop discussion, I think what drives a lot of people nowadays, and they like to see a little bit more of the card shop come back. At least what I personally like about card shops is you can actually go in there and look at the card.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I think we've all been taken advantage of online or misled. Many.
Oh yeah, those photo filters are something.
I mean, but to actually tangibly put your hand on the card or pick it up or look at it, not even just from an authenticity standpoint, but really to get a good understanding of the condition of the card is almost invaluable as well.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up, because particularly as someone who does buy a lot of raw vintage, I would say 98% of it I buy locally for that exact reason, because I've had, I don't want to say bad experiences, but I've been disappointed when I've received cards, even through Facebook or eBay, where, I'm not saying they flat out lied, but they may have embellished.
Well, I mean, let me go into story time. So, what was it? About a week ago, I had the situation happen. So I bid on a TCMA Ripken rookie, right? So this is one of his TCMA cards, his Red Wing cards, right?
Awesome.
So there was a card. It was raw. It was on eBay. The picture wasn't the best, but it was one of those that you said, wow, this is it's a raw card. It was a decent price, so I bought it. Right? I did the bid on it, or actually they changed it from an auction to a buy now, and I bought it. Snapped it up right away. Get the card, bring it home in hand. There was a couple red flags. That is one of those things that was kind of like it seems almost too good to be true, but with eBay buyer protection and PayPal and all that stuff, let's just go ahead.
Take the risk, roll the dice,
take the risk, right? So I get it home. It's in a 4 screw down. I pull it out. I look at it, and I'm like, immediately paper. It's like you could tell the card stock was different from the the I have. The color was a little different. And then the interesting thing was, and of course, I have several of them back here, so I could take, a PSA
you can take a look
out of the corner. So I put it side by side, I can see what the major differences are, right? Then I flip it over, and the image on the back is inverted.
Oh no.
So that was another telltale sign that it was not correct. So, you do your normal thing. I even took pictures and, wrote it up, sent it back to the guy, even though that he wasn't offering refunds. He quickly accepted my refund request, but it was just
nice.
funny.
Hey, well, good for him, man, because so many people tell like these nightmare eBay stories, and I think what you're talking about there, and I know this is segueing away from kind of what we're talking about before, is even though you may have an honest dealer, sometimes there are dealers that don't know.
Mhm.
Like that, particularly with a card like a TCMA Ripken, it's not very common. I mean, it's not something that's just around all the time, and that is one thing that. So I'm glad the guy gave the refund, because I try and preach to people that not everyone is trying to rip you off. Like it may have been an honest. Maybe I'm naive, dude.
No. I mean,
I really
in
feel
all
like,
reality, like it was either twofold. Either the guy willingly took it back because he felt bad and he realized that he didn't, I mean, because when I sent him the picture, I sent him like a PSA 10 right next to it. I flipped it over. I explained to him the differences. I probably went above and beyond than what
yeah,
most
for
people did.
explanation's sake, right?
But, at the end of the day, I wasn't sure. I was like, hey, did he put it up there knowing that it was fake? Did he get it and then put it in the screw down and then try to flip it on eBay, that kind of thing? Or, was it an honest
Just buy
mistake?
collect. See, sometimes
Yeah.
you can tell. You can easily tell. Well, I shouldn't say easily,
Yeah.
but you can kind of discern from like the other sold stuff.
The part that got me was, when I go look at his auction items on eBay, this guy had like, it looked like he was buying shit from yard sales.
Yeah,
So,
lawn mowers, lamps.
yeah,
Yeah,
painting,
that's probably it, man.
so he probably didn't know any better. And that's why I felt bad. I mean, that's why I didn't leave any, negative feedback or anything like that. I just said, hey, but that's the risk, I was willing to take going in up front. And I think that's a good segue to the fact that when you're looking at this stuff, there's a lot of telltale signs of, auctions that could go south on you quick, and what they say is when it's too good to be true,
It is.
it usually is, and
It usually
one of
is.
those things, but you take a risk.
That happened to me. It was a Facebook post where a guy had a 52 Bowman mantle, and if you looked at the front of it, and he didn't put any other pictures, it was like in a screw down case, of course, but it was in like a penny sleeve. And if you just looked at the front of it, it had the right size, the printing looked good, everything else. And we kind of got in this discussion back and forth about whether you should buy it or not. And I said, hey, man, all I can tell you is that the price should reflect that it's not graded. You know what I mean? Like, if it's not graded, this is what it goes for. This is what you should expect to pay. And hey, sometimes I've been to card shop or card shows, and I know a guy who bought a 51 Bowman Mantle rookie card for like $300 because everybody said it was fake. Sure enough, he sent it to PSA. It got a PSA 3. It was completely legit. So, like, that's a hell of a return on investment. But that is the exception and not the rule. So the guy took it and he turned it over, and it was kind of like you said. You could tell immediately on the back. And it was just the color of the cardstock. It's kind of difficult to reproduce certain types of aging, certain types of paper. Like, that's not the easiest thing to do. And it was obvious that it was fake. But man, getting back to like card shops, again, that's a part I really like about going to a card shop, especially one where it's not the guy that's doing like the yard sale thing. It's a guy that works in cards all the time. He's been doing it his whole life. Like, it's a really, like, for him to sell a fake would be horrible for his reputation. So like, he is super motivated to not do that. And I think that's one thing about having a local guy too, is that because they're running a standard brick and mortar business, they will take more pride in those type of things. Because, when you have that local customer base, like something like that causes a lot more damage, in my opinion, than it even does on something like online.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, you're face to face. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
person behind it, and but I will tell you this: I don't care, what card shop you're in. As soon as you're looking at that vintage card and you pull out a loop out of your pocket and start looking at it up close, the guys get squirmish. They do, man. I don't know why. Like, if you think it's legit,
Well, they just want you to be careful, man. I think that's what it is. I can't remember what, this being our 18th episode, I can't remember what I've really talked about or not before, but I am an absolute ass when I get, not at a card shop, but like at a card show. Like, I have a loop, I have my phone, I walk around, I don't give a care in the world. Like, if I offend you, I'm sorry. But like, I'm trying to get as much as I can for my money and vice versa. And legitimately, 90% or more of the dealers don't care. They want you to do it. They're fine with it.
I don't know. It always takes me back when they get squirmish about it. And I'm not talking. I mean, I'm talking about like even still in a forced screw down or whatever the case may be, or snap tight. I mean, it's not like you're pulling out the card and and fingering it. I mean,
right. You're just looking at it. You're taking the right.
Yeah, but some of the dealers are completely cool. They'll be like, "Hey, take it out." Like I would never buy a vintage card without actually touching it or feeling it. I'm like, wow, you really want this 17-year-old kid pulling your mantle out of a? It's like, hey, whatever, man.
Yeah.
But I don't know, but at the end of the day, I mean, you're there to protect your investment,
Yeah.
and not just buy on the spot. And you kind of have to take other people's feelings out of it, because that's another red flag in person. If people are getting way too serious about you looking at their cards, like, I'm not saying like damaging their cards, but if it's still in the screw down, you pull a loop out, you're looking at it, they're like getting kind of awkward. You're like, well, why is that?
Well, sometimes, man, I mess up. These are all vintage cards that I bought at the card shop, and when you look at them, like they're in these sleeves, like these like sleeves you stick them in. Like I don't like to take cards out of sleeves like that because you really got to kind of like open it up and like pinch it with your finger and like get it out. They're kind of like a pain in the balls.
Box cutter. Take a box cutter, run it down the side, and just cut it open.
Yeah, these are for sale, so I don't want to and plus like the value of these is probably like $5 to $10 a piece. Yeah. So I'm not going to pull them any one. But the reason I bring that up is I got all these nice cards, and then the one I bought, I came home, I was so pissed because I don't know if you can see it on there, but it's a Louis Aparicio Hall of Famer, because I just pick up Hall of Fame cards. And if you just look at it, it looks okay, but it's got this like huge crease running down the middle. And I got home like, what the hell was I looking at? Did I not like at least like hold it up? I mean, obviously I didn't spend a lot of money on it to like not go through.
Been there, done that too, man. I went to a card shop up in Orlando once, and went through all their cards, grabbed all their Orioles, out of there, and I don't know. I guess I was just going too quick and not really looking at it, And I get back out to the card, and I'm kind of looking through it, and I look down at the card, and it's like. Dangled. I'm like, what how did I miss that? But I mean, for a couple bucks or whatever. It's like,
right. Yeah. So I guess my point to this, bringing that up, is I don't do that with every freaking card. I do it with the ones that are a little bit higher price and value. So I'm sure I can put it towards a 66 set or something that's something that I'll eventually put together. But man, I hate these Ultra Pro sleeves for that reason I mentioned. But they sell, because what they do is they obviously have their graded cards. They're higher end guys. They put penny sleeve top loader. But then the reason that they do this is because these cards are not easy to sell per se. How many people walk into a card shop and say, "Hey, do you have a 69 home run leaders?" So I guess that's why they use them. They're probably cheaper, but good for sending in graded cards. And you're spot on with your box topper assessment.
Yeah, I mean, you just cut down the side on the and just peel it back, because I got some the other day, like some 75s and whatnot. The ones that bother me though is when they try to jam the relic cards and the game use stuff in there. Man, it's like
oh, that's insane.
Yeah,
dude, you said that. I didn't even know people did that. Like that blows my mind.
Mm-hmm. Well, they have, card saver 1s, card savers 2s. There's a couple different differences between those card saver, sizes and whatnot. But, I went to the card shop that I was telling you about, and they had some with like relic cards in there. And then they stapled, the top shut. So you couldn't, I was like, so, I mean, in a situation like that, you can't even, how are you going to pull the staple out? I mean, you're going to have to just basically cut around the card and, pull it out and put it into a different holder. But I don't know. I mean, I'm with you on that.
That's crazy.
I think it's just from a cheap standpoint, it's probably cheaper to buy the card savers, obviously, than, top loaders for everything.
I've been trying to move a lot of my cards into top loaders. I mean, not to sound like a jerk saying it, but I've accrued so many cards that, it's actually terribly expensive to penny sleeve and top load like every card that you want to keep and get. But I've been trying to like do it as much as possible, man. I've even been like buying in bulk, like just watching a game on TV. Like I just sit there, penny sleeve, top load next, penny sleeve, top load next, and like move it on. But yeah, it's expensive to do that, because I really got into the magnetic holders for the nicer stuff, and man, that is a killer.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I'm kind of like a snob like that too. I mean, I want all of my cards in penny sleeve and top loaders, even the commons, man. When I buy top loaders, I buy like a case of them. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
literally a case of Ultra Pro, top loaders. So I feel you on that. But the mags, man, the mags are really, really expensive. That's for sure.
I found a good deal where I can get them for about $1.50 a piece. And that's not bad. Like, I feel like $1.50 is up to 180 point, which is the thicker ones. And I know they kind of vary. So that's why people ask me all the time, like, where do you get your mags? I get them at my card shop.
Yeah, buying in
Because
bulk usually helps.
well, buy them in bulk and buying them without having, because they're heavy, buying them without having to pay the shipping really saves a ton.
Mhm.
And now that I kind of mentioned the shipping, that's another thing I really like about an LCS, because I've been trying to put like sets together. And when you get like a high volume number of cards in a set, like I'm trying to do the Topps 206 autographs, I'm trying to do the archive autographs. So, you have a couple hundred cards in there. The shipping alone would be $500, which is nothing to sneeze at. So if I can get them in bulk or locally at my card shop, I always try and go that way.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Because the shipping is so much. But I don't want to make it awkward running off on you. But I hear my little boy upstairs getting ready to go out. He wants to go out and play baseball, which I think is a really cool thing, man.
Hell yeah.
He's getting into it with a T-ball.
Well, I'm glad we were able to get together for a little bit. Sad we missed John with us this week, but definitely interested in hearing from the viewers. I know we're going to get together soon. Like, what topics do you guys want to hear us discuss? Hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Let us know. And I think it's pretty much an open book for us.
Yeah, man. I'm looking forward to getting Johnny Hollywood on here because as you and I were kind of talking before we went on, the thing is he just opened so many of the new products. So I'm always so interested to hear what he has to say because, I only get a few. I know Tier 1 just came out. I saw Tier 1. It looks awesome. It's kind of like got the marbly like museum thing going on there. So I didn't know if you were going to get any Tier 1.
I did last year.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm going to do it this year. I may just cherry pick again.
All right.
One of the reasons why is I'm kind of on the fence about this new exquisite stuff. So,
okay.
And I'm sure John will talk about it more next time we do the next episode. But
yeah.
You need to go out there and take a look at it. It's definitely
I'll check it out.
The highest of the highest end baseball that's going to be right now. So.
Very cool, man.
I mean, there's like diamonds and emeralds and stuff like that in the cards, and it comes.
Oh yeah, I've seen those.
It's crazy. So, I mean, it was super popular for basketball, obviously.
Yeah, it was.
But I'm really interested to see what it's going to be like for baseball and how popular it's going to be. But anyway.
Right, well, I'm glad that we can get together, guys. Thanks for checking us out wherever you're doing so. I know some guys are still checking out the older episodes. There's one I'm in a hot tub. And just craziness will inevitably ensue at some point during anytime you get me, you and John together, it's mostly me arguing with John. I feel like and you're just kind of refereeing the two of us.
I think my favorite episode was the one episode where John was in the kitchen cooking like meatballs and stuff.
Oh yes, I love that one too. That's great. The apron episode. That's fantastic. We got to start learning the numbers so we can tell people specifically which ones. But that is one of my favorite ones as well, man. So thanks for getting together today, Edwin, guys. And again, thanks for checking us out. And hopefully we'll get together again soon.
Sounds good.